I don't have to be surrounded by people that want me dead, doing the
Yeah,
thing that
exactly.
I can't help that I enjoy. It's like, oh, I can't help that I enjoy God, and I can't help that I enjoy cock. Before we really get into this video, let me provide some context. Our subject matter today is conservative Christian YouTuber Redeemed Zoomer. He also identifies himself as someone that left the left. I stumbled on him through probably his largest video, and his problematic beliefs really only grew from there. We'll be taking a look at that, and the story of how he conquered/saved his current church. Now remember, anyone can criticize the Redeemed Zoomer or even myself, but don't attack anyone, and don't do anything silly. Leave a like, subscribe, and let's get into this. Enjoy. And then here's where it starts to be like, he starts to really show, obviously, his true colors of like, there's the liberal leaning and the conservative leaning. And he's got things like the Lutheran Church of Missouri. Anything in Missouri is not good. I've lived there, not good.
Have their own liberal and conservative factions within them, and the most radically liberal ones don't believe anything Christian anymore at all. There are some Protestant churches that have lesbian pastors and leftist political symbols, and there's others that make the news for their
And see, there we
views.
go. Only took 7 minutes, but he's in here. But there's some Protestant, quote, churches that have lesbians or Black Lives Matter flags. So kind of a little fucked up.
Yeah, this dude.
Some Protestant churches look very traditional and similar to Catholics. Other Protestant churches look very contemporary and don't resemble a traditional church at all. So is there anything that all of these different Protestant groups agree on? Yes, there actually is one thing. It's that the Bible has more authority than the church. A conservative Lutheran would say both the Bible and church tradition have a lot of authority, but the Bible has slightly more. A fundamentalist Baptist would say the Bible has a lot of authority, and church tradition doesn't have any authority at all, really. A progressive pastor would say neither the Bible nor church tradition have much authority at all, but the Bible still has a little bit more given the church's history of patriarchy and colonization. And that's
I don't know how he found this one. He's big in religion, so he definitely like knows more, but this is how you know they're progressive. A woman with short hair, pointy glasses, and tattoos.
You see, all the churches I've already talked about have this model of the Trinity, where the Son is eternally begotten of the Father, and the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son. But the Orthodox reject that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Son, saying that the Holy Spirit only proceeds from the Father. Why? It's complicated, but the biggest reason is that it's not part of their tradition. And in Orthodoxy, tradition matters most. That's why all the trad people online often end up becoming Orthodox. So how does salvation work?
Cringe. Okay, and then this is, obviously, he had his silly little, I guess not even mask off, but his silly little, there's progressive churches, but they're clearly not Christian because they have lesbians and BLM flags. And then here you see, like, oh, here's the denominations. Here's all these little denominations. And then the next frame is where we really go even further off the rails.
So that's pretty much all of them. There's some that I didn't include because it's unclear whether they believe the essentials of Christianity, and there's also some I didn't include because
I've heard Quaker, I know, and Seventh-day Adventist, I know I've heard of it, but I just don't know anything to associate to it. Jehovah's Witness, I know that. Plenty of funny ha-has with that. Mormon, lived in Utah, I know of that one. And then here's where you really see some funny ha-ha. Radically progressive. That's just a denomination as a whole. Because obviously his belief is that any church, any denomination can technically fall into that if they believe that gay people are okay and that black people should have rights.
He just put a little rainbow flag in the circle.
Yeah, just a little pride flag. Just he's like, this could really be anything because it's just radically progressive. And his version of radically progressive, as we saw in his other video, is just anyone that believes gay people are okay, really. The 7-minute mark and this mark in his biggest video show how much of a silly little buddy these types of beliefs are, just inherently, by saying progressive churches are fake and weird, and then also here explicitly heretical, just totally against God in every possible way because of his, like I said, Calvinist beliefs, where everyone is born fucked or okay. Because this, you just get a little taste, you just get a little inkling of what's wrong with him.
Yeah, he was just explaining.
For the most part, he was just explaining. You can see his personal bias when he says that lesbians and Black Lives Matter are ruining church. Should Christians be feminist? Yeah.
Oh god, that one's scary.
He's got a nice consistent belief of the answer is no. They should not.
Whoa.
How to conquer a progressive church.
Like it's fucking Civ 5, holy shit.
Yeah, exactly.
retake a church that's fallen to progressivism. Well, if they were able to change it one way...
See, and so there you go. Silly little buddy. How do you, just the opening line, how do you retake a church that has fallen to progressive views? How do you wrench that back? Because it is clearly fallen. It's whether that's fallen like in a sense of, you know, like being conquered, which is obviously what he's referring to, but also at the same time, fallen, I would assume he would probably argue the metaphor of like fallen from God. Or I guess in his case, it's probably not a metaphor, but you know, how do you make it so that it's all right again? Or alt-right again? But let's find out.
You can change
Put
back.
on the John 75.
Hey guys, welcome back to Kingdom Craft, where I build this big church in Minecraft while I talk about Christianity. And today I'm going to be telling you a story of my church, which briefly did fall to progressivism, but I'm going to tell you the story of how a bunch of guys, including me, were able to take it back.
We're able to take it back. It's not
Me and
perfect.
my bros. Whoa, holy shit. This is gonna be crazy.
It's a mainline Protestant church, which I'll go more into, but we've stopped it from completely falling to progressive Christianity. So, for those of you who don't really know the context, a lot of churches, particularly mainline Protestant churches, have abandoned the historic Christian faith and have instead fallen to what's called progressive Christianity, which seeks to just progress beyond the traditional historic Christian faith and just reinterpret it, say it's all just a metaphor for love and social justice, and they don't really believe in the Christian essentials. All they believe in is just being political and doing social justice.
His historical, true Christian beliefs are gay equals bad. Like that's that's like the primary one, honestly. Like that's the one that he discusses the most. Is that anything gay, anything trans, anything LGBTQA XYZ banana pepper is bad. That's what these progressive churches are stepping away from.
So, obviously, that is not Christianity, and if we are to actually be followers of Jesus, we need to stand against that. So, like I said, I always say this, I'm not talking about politically progressive, I'm not talking about...
And he says, social justice, you gotta stand against that if you want to truly be Christian, and then he says, not politically progressive, okay? That's not what I'm talking about. That is not at all what I'm referring to, LOL.
What's the
politics at
fucking
all, really.
difference?
I'm just talking about churches that have abandoned what's historically been Christianity for a message that doesn't really have anything to do with Christianity, but just to do with politics and stuff. And that's the way a lot of progressive churches are. And the mainline
These churches are being political by not being true to historical Christianity.
Is he trying to say that he is not political?
Yeah, he I believe, I don't remember which video it was, but he's like outlined himself as he personally is like, you know, conservative, right-leaning or whatever, you know. His videos are apolitical, you know, like they're just anti-woke and anti-left,
His
social
historical
justice.
basis for his religion is not political, but them wanting to... Okay, so that's a huge thing in conservative circles. It's like, why are you making this into politics? And politics just means like black people or something.
Yeah. Anything that's not white people are the best. That's politics.
The status quo is always political. If you're fighting to maintain the status quo, that's a political statement.
Okay.
Protestant denominations have, for the most part, fallen to this. Like the PCUSA, which is my denomination, and for Episcopals, the Episcopal Church of America, the United Methodist Church, which is now splitting over that whole issue, the ELCA, Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, which is not evangelical. So, yeah, all the mainline denominations have this problem. But the problem got as bad as it did because the more conservative Christians ran away as soon as it started becoming a problem, and that just accelerated their fall to progressive Christianity. So,
hear that? Christians are just pussies that run away. Aren't strong enough to take control and keep their churches in line.
They're really afraid of us.
It's
really
just,
scared.
In some ways, they only really have themselves to blame, I think. But if you're wondering what I'm doing in Minecraft, I'm getting some jungle wood because I want to build an organ in my church. But I think that that was a mistake. It was a mistake to split from the mainline churches because they are the more culturally rooted institutional churches, and I think we need to take them back. So my church is a story of a somewhat successful attempt at taking back a church that had fallen to progressivism. So my church, just like 10 years ago, was considered a pretty conservative church, especially for the PCUSA. We were considered like the most conservative church in our presbytery. We had a pretty theologically conservative pastor. We had a lot of theologically and politically conservative members. This was way before I joined the church. Back then, I wasn't religious. And more recently, in the past, like, 5 years or so, a lot of, like, the more conservative elders, the, like, old Scottish elders, all started dying out. So they were replaced by younger people from the city that were much more progressive in their ideology. And the leadership just kind of didn't really notice this happening, didn't notice the gradual hijack. But
they didn't realize how, with all these old people dying and all these young people coming in, that their church was slowly being hijacked from the inside out, getting parasitically invaded by these wokes, these progressives.
I mean, by the sound of it, it sounds like most of the people who would give a shit were fucking dead.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's why he's the redeemed Zoomer. You know, he's not like the other kids. You know, he's cool and conservative.
Yeah, he believes that Harry Potter's real. You know.
The year I joined the church, I had 1 year with the pastor, and then he retired. And then my church did this thing where there was going to be a temporary 2-year interim pastor before we selected the permanent pastor. And because a bunch of progressives had crept onto the board of onto the session of elders, the interim pastor that they selected was wildly progressive and did not believe the Christian faith at all. This is where I first got introduced to progressive Christianity. About a year after becoming Christian, I realized, hey, wait, there's a good number of people in these churches of pastors who don't believe Christianity. And at first, I tried to see maybe is there something to this progressive Christianity, because I was still exploring. But I ended up rejecting it because it did not provide anything spiritually substantial. It didn't provide anything that you couldn't get by listening to a Bernie Sanders rally, basically. I wanted actual answers about the basics.
See, there you go, right there. Silly little buddy. This version of Christianity didn't provide anything spiritual or substantial. You could just, if you wanted to hear these kinds of things, you could just go to a Bernie Sanders rally. I mean, once again, incredibly telling considering what Bernie Sanders has, at least most recently. We should go to 32-hour work weeks. So this motherfucker's out here being like, you don't get anything from these progressive churches. All they talk about is gay rights and human rights and shit. This sucks. That doesn't connect me to God.
You should work 70 hours a week and then spend an hour of your week at fucking church on Sunday.
Oh, that's the thing. If people were able to work less, like Bernie Sanders wants, they could spend more time at church. They could spend more time helping their local church,
There is no fucking way. If people had more time to themselves, they would spend it at church.
I mean, he would.
He would, yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, that's the argument that this guy doesn't get. He could go to church. I mean, he doesn't have to worry about it. He said he was in like college or whatever, and he's got this YouTube channel, so he's probably fine. But all the other people, all those elders and stuff that died, they could have spent more time, at the church if they didn't have that 80-year grind.
Yeah, no, maybe if the elders had like some better health care, they could have, not died as quickly.
Questions about God and religion and, all those other big questions that especially young people like me are wondering about. So that's why I ended up rejecting progressive Christianity. And I was really concerned that this was the direction our church was going, because I didn't want this. So I was getting confirmed that year in the church, and I was assigned a mentor. And I asked him, like, I'm not sure if I'm into this whole progressive Christianity thing. Maybe I should leave and just join a more evangelical church. I heard about the PCA churches, and I live close to New York City, where all of Tim Keller and his daughter churches are. So I was like, hey, why shouldn't I just join one of those? And my mentor, who was still, theologically conservative, said that, that mindset is the reason this got so bad in the first place. He told me not to leave. He told me that our church, even though it was in the process of falling to progressivism, still has our book of confessions. Even though the PCUSA, for the most part, doesn't follow their confessions, they still have a book of confessions that has all the same Presbyterian confessions and other Reformed confessions, like the Presbyterian, like the Scots Confession, the Westminster Confession, the Heidelberg Catechism. So we are still Christian on paper, no matter what. It's just that a lot of people in the PCUSA have chosen not to follow our written beliefs. But he said, the PCUSA in its essence is still Christian, is still Reformed, is still Presbyterian, and our job should be to try and make it conform to its essence more. So me, him, and a bunch of other guys.
I love the idea of him going and being like, yo, I'm thinking like this church is kind of a little too woke for me. I should leave. And the guy being like, dude, bro, you're not gonna believe this. Even though that I agree that this church is getting kind of woke, we can take it back. I've got a plan of attack. And then he takes off his shirt, reveals the Prison Break style tattoo he has of the entire blueprints of the church. He's like, we're gonna come in through this secret path right here above my lower mole, and we're gonna get in there and we're gonna overthrow it. We're gonna take this church back for right-wing conservatism.
It's like Iroh and Zuko and fucking Last Airbender.
She wanted us to fly a pride flag. She was a universalist. She did not believe in the resurrection, even. I should have mentioned that first. I don't know why I mentioned the pride flag thing first. This proves that we all are too influenced by politics, and theology needs to be first in our mind before.
That's funny.
Oh, I have no idea why I mentioned the pride flag.
It's like, I mean, obviously that's bad, but like the God stuff is way more important.
I have no clue. I don't know. It's pretty obvious why you didn't mention that, buddy.
I'm just so caught up in politics. We need to all stop being so politics,
But a pride flag.
It's like, I'm just so silly for getting hung up on the pride flag. Obviously, it's bad. We all know that. We're Christians after all.
Yeah, she doesn't believe in the resurrection.
But yeah, it was hard. But eventually, we got our permanent pastor, who is theologically orthodox and has neglected to do things like fly a pride flag or other like explicitly political things. And even though my church now is struggling, because once we had that interim pastor, a lot of people got lost interest and left our church, and our church is just struggling with membership, as all mainline churches are. We did not fall to progressivism like so many other churches have. So how do we do it? How did we?
So that's once again, that's just funny. It's like, even though like sure a lot of mainline churches are struggling with membership, just because that's just how churches are. Christianity is dying. There's an attack on Christianity, and that's why our numbers are dwindling. But he's like, we were able to take back our church. Let me tell you how we did it. But we did also lose a whole lot of people because we took it back. A lot of people decided they didn't want to be involved, but we were still in the right. Everyone left, but at least we were able to take our church back and not have it fall to progressivism.
We take a situation where we were about to and stop it from happening and become like we're I think the one church in our region of PCUSA churches that does not fly pride flag. So even though we're not like a super conservative church, we are the.
It's just he says, oh, politics this, politics that, don't worry about that, you know, it's all about the church. He's like, I think if I'm recalling correctly, we're actually the only church in our whole area, our whole tri-state area, that doesn't fly a pride flag. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, but they're like hemorrhaging members and everyone thinks they're fucking crazy.
Oh yeah,
the most conservative church in our like area. So how do we do it? Well,
sounds like a losing battle.
That's a lot of,
so how do we do it? How did we manage to be the only singular church in a 50-mile radius that doesn't have a pride flag? Well, we didn't run away. We finally weren't cowards for once.
A lot of times when they do that, they can do it so quickly and easily because the conservatives either don't notice it's happening or just run away. So
left-leaning is politics. Right-leaning is God. Any church that's left-leaning in any capacity, such as just saying, hey, gays shouldn't be murdered, and that they are not immediately going to hell, is politics. Saying gays are going to hell is not politics. But it's just so funny that his idea is like, conservatives don't notice. Like he opens with they don't notice or they can't do anything to stop it or something for the second part.
Oh shit, there's a pride flag, guys.
Oh, God.
Well, guess we better run away now.
I would assume, just based on, I don't know, population demographics in just the United States, for one, left-leaning, or at least like tolerant-leaning, like, you know, there's a higher majority of people in the United States, even Republicans, that are like leaning on the side of tolerance. So it's probably more just that people move in, people live somewhere, and they're like, oh, I like going to church. I'm a church person. So they go to church. They're not silly little buddies. So then, you know, other people do the same. And you know, that continues for however long. You know, they have kids, they do whatever. And then at some point, because just the national demographic of people in the United States do not hate gay people, at some point, it's just him in a church, and he looks around. He starts freaking out. He's like, "Oh fuck! Oh god!" He looks, and he didn't realize this. But the rainbow, instead of being a creation of God, is now it's all just pride flags everywhere. It's pride flags. He looks down at his Bible. It turns in his hand into a pride flag bound book, and then suddenly he looks up at the front, and they're burning an American flag, and then replacing it with a pride flag, and God's crying. God's crying.
See, I think a little bit, this guy obviously is not a reputable source for this story. I think a little bit of exposure theory probably happened at this church. I think it maybe wasn't that people didn't notice all of the progressivism happening in their church. I think what happened is like maybe there were some less progressive people, but there were more progressive people who came into the church and kind of explained their ideology a little bit. And maybe the more conservative people started to agree with it and didn't really care. Or like they were just kind of like live and let live. Like they weren't running away.
The kind of thing that's just the national demographic of the United States as a whole. Maybe it might be lower a little bit now, but like it was like 40% of people that consider themselves Republican are okay with gay and trans people, which is a pretty high amount of people in, you know, in the Republican section of people. So it's probably just, yeah, like you're saying, there's other people that still like God, but they also like human rights and things like that. So they come into this church, and then suddenly all these various age, but probably slightly older, probably white families and people, older couples, whatever, are suddenly around all these younger, potentially mixed, you know, racial, mixed, like background, mixed, anything or whatever, and just being like, hey. And then suddenly it's not a monster that you hear about on the news. It's Jen and Kara from church.
Yeah, like, and like these people are Christians. They're not like literal historical Calvinist fucking weirdos like extremists like this guy.
Yeah.
But like they go in, they talk to the other Christians, and the Bible's essentially like a choose your own adventure book. How inconsistent it is with itself. So like they explain their ideology, they explain like how it fits into the Bible and how it makes sense to them. And like probably some of the more conservative Christians are like, oh, I didn't think about it like that. That makes sense. Because, you know, they have communion with these people and they trust these people to some extent because they're part of their community.
Yeah.
And this guy doesn't like that.
Yeah, he hates that.
Yeah, he hates that a lot.
Inside because
from his perspective, this is the conservatives running away and dying.
Yeah, because he is as he considers it, a mainline church, and mainline churches are just inherently more frequently progressive leaning.
And you can see it, like, this is like some extremist shit. This is not popular.
Oh, a big weakness for Christians, especially, you know, white affluent Christians and mainline Protestant churches, is they're too polite. They don't want to start any conflict.
That is so true. If there is one truth about rich white Christians, is that they are too polite.
Oh yeah, nicest people I've ever met in my entire life.
That is just such a well-known true fact about rich, or as he says, affluent white Christians. Really, really polite. This woman in the blue, like, denim jacket is like the mom of the main dude or something that was like the main representative that was like up in arms about Zoe Zephyr saying voting against trans affirming care will put blood on their hands. So that's his mom hogging the bench. He's saying that rich white conservative Christians are just like really polite. Just constantly being as polite as possible because they don't want to start any conflict.
Especially the rich ones, like they were alive. They were probably fucking throwing fucking food at like MLK protesters and shit. Like they were alive during this shit. Oh yeah. Like they were prospering during that time.
Exactly.
So they will often, like, I'll often hear, like, when our pastor, our progressive interim pastor, preached something heretical, I would talk to a bunch of people and they'd be like, yeah, I didn't like that. But they wouldn't actually speak up and say anything, and that's the whole problem. A lot of us can be a bit too polite. Now, of course, it's a really fine line because we're told to say everything that we believe with gentleness and respect. So we need to keep doing that no matter how bad our situation is. But that doesn't mean we'd be too shy to use our voice. So in your church, like if you see like the seeds of progressivism starting to be planted in your church, you know, say something. Because generally the reason that progressives get their way is because they're the loudest, they're the most annoying. They make the most demands. It's like the squeakiest wheel gets the grease, or however the saying goes. Because they make the most demands and they're the least apologetic, they get their way the most. So so that's the first piece of advice is don't run away. The second piece of advice is don't back down.
Progressives are the loudest for sure every single time, and they always get their way, as we've seen in current. Once again, he says not political, obviously, except for left. Only the left is political. But we've seen in politics, the left are incredibly vocally like prominent and always get what they want every single time.
This country's been conservative like pretty much the entire time that it's existed. Maybe there's been a few spots of leftism here or there, but this is what happens when leftists start to speak out even a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, people like this guy start to freak out and be like, oh man, they're so loud, they won't stop fucking talking. And it's like, we're just like kind of explaining.
They're going to give gays rights.
Yeah, like
remember,
maybe
he's against gay marriage.
Yeah,
because that's a
like
god
conservatives have had like complete control over the status quo for generations, and now we start to speak out a little bit, and people like him are like, they're so loud. Why are they talking so much? Oh, shut up. This type of religious bullshit, like this stinks of like religion is dying. Like we know like Christianity is starting to die in this country, but like this type of shit really cemented for me.
Because trust me, mainline churches are desperate for membership and desperate for people who will be active in their community. So I'd say the fourth piece of advice is be active and passionate. Mainline churches are so dead that they're desperate for any kind of energy, no matter where it comes from. So if you come in and show your passion for Christ, even if they don't really agree with what you're saying, they will appreciate your energy. And that's what happened with me. Like, I know I am the most theologically conservative one in my church, period. But people still sort of liked having me around and gave me positions like teaching Sunday school and being on the communications committee and running the church's social media because of the passion that I displayed, whereas most people in a mainline church.
I mean, so he's not technically wrong. You know, you could just go do these things for the church because they're like, oh, shit, dude, this kid wants to do a bunch of stuff for free? Hell yeah. He can run, run the church Twitter and teach these Sunday school kids. Fuck yeah, dude. Awesome.
The church wants people's money still, you know? So, like, you know, you believe in the gays or whatever. We don't really like that, but you're going to put $1 in the parishioner basket, right?
And it will require you to put up with a lot of stuff you don't like. But I put up for 2 whole years with a female pastor preaching heresy regularly from the pulpit each week. And so if I can do that stuff, you know, because of how dead they are, that's when you can start skewing more of your opinions. And if you get on the session, you can become an elder.
So I like the way he said that.
In a it doesn't take long to do.
So he's go like this.
Because of how dead they are. That's when you can start skewing more of your opinions.
That's when you can start spewing your opinions.
Yeah, I like how it's a bell curve and not like a straight line.
The way he emphasizes that, it's like, you're not spreading your truth, you're spewing your opinions.
You're spreading it so
there.
loud that everyone hates you and they leave. And then when everyone's gone and you're alone in the church, you get to claim victory.
I'm going to spend 20 years in the Central African Republic preaching to the pygmies and giving them Bibles, and that's great, by the way. You know, maybe we should do fewer mission trips to Zimbabwe and more mission trips across the street to our local mainline church. And
I know exactly what to do, okay? We're wasting all of our time and energy and money building houses and giving shoes to poor children in Africa when we could be going to the church across the street and telling them that gays are fucking bad.
Then, like, once you tip the needle a little bit, it will start to accelerate, because what we really need to do is disturb the safe space. A lot of people in progressive churches are people who were just...
What was that one, buddy? What was that?
Because what we really need to do is disturb the safe space. A lot of people
need to
in progressive
disturb
churches...
the safe space. Man, that's so
disturb the safe space.
That's so cringe. We gotta get in there. We gotta get to these safe spaces where they have pride flags and they're speaking heresy by saying God loves everyone.
Once again, like, he's gonna go into the church with the pride flag and be like, "We're gonna break up the safe space, bro."
He's gonna try to grab the flag down, knock a bunch of stuff over, and be like, "Ugh, you're turning your kids gay."
They're just gonna like stare at him like, "What are you talking about?"
Are people who were just hate conservative Christianity and want a place that's safe from conservative Christianity. They feel like threatened by conservative Christianity, and they want a place where they're safe from that. So if you can just add a little bit of conservatism to the church, it will quickly turn into a lot, because those who are progressive will just get uncomfortable.
They're probably gay, right?
Because,
or something adjacent to that. They wanna feel safe from conservative Christianity. Gee, I wonder why. It's almost like it hates them and everybody adjacent to them.
Yeah, and it's also just, once again, really funny, because he says, like, oh, if you make it a little uncomfy for them, they'll leave. Even though the reason that all these churches are the way that they are now is because they came into these places and dealt with being uncomfortable so that they could turn the church gay from the inside out. Quote unquote Christians, obviously we know they're not Christians, came in and, you know, slowly tipped the needle. If we come in and slowly tip the needle, then they'll all leave, because that's what they did before.
Yeah, they'll just go somewhere else. But yeah, no, I don't know. It's just, I think it's really showing. He's like, oh yeah, they're trying to protect themselves from us in these safe spaces. First of all, isn't it like, aren't you just making a safe space? A slightly more inclusive version of Christianity. It's not like they're like, if you don't exactly agree with us, then no. It's like, no, these people are probably more inclusive, and that's probably why their church is more successful.
Because it reaches more people. It can be like,
yeah,
oh,
it's a nicer place to be.
I don't have to be surrounded by people that want me dead, doing the thing
exactly.
that I can't help that I enjoy. It's like, oh, I can't help that I enjoy God, and I can't help that I enjoy cock.
One time I was in a Zoom call. My church, this was before we had our new permanent pastor, when our church was still kind of woke. It was a Zoom call. It was basically a Black Lives Matter class. And all I did was I went there and I spouted some theologically conservative opinions. I wasn't saying anything political. I was just saying, you know, this
My woke pastor had a Zoom class that was basically just a Black Lives Matter class. And, you know, I went there and I just started, you know, spouting some like theologically like some theological truths, nothing political, just some theological truths. And well, you know what happened next. I'm not racist, but I just love the theological truth.
No politics here, bro, but we should stone the gays. That's what the book says.
Here, well, we'll see.
Black Lives Matter movement is not the gospel. It's not what Christianity is about, and we should not be supporting it. And this one progressive lady just got so triggered by what I said. I wasn't trying to be offensive. I was just saying what I believe, but she got so triggered by what I said. She's like, I'm getting so much religious trauma from hearing this. I have to leave now. So, you know, I think we overestimate how...
I'm not saying it didn't happen, but it doesn't sound real. Because he's saying, like, oh, my pastor was holding a class, and it was really basically just Black Lives Matter. So I came in there and I said, Black lives don't matter. I just love God. God's just
the Bible
truth.
doesn't say anything about Black lives, so do they really matter? Like, what did you say, dude? What did you say? I really want to know specifically what he said.
Yeah, he was just spitting some theological truths, some theological facts.
The truth is, the Bible never said anything about BLM. It's like, what?
Like his story that he's kind of throwing out here is that He had a pastor that said, hey, I just want everyone to know I'm hosting this Zoom class. They get into the Zoom class, and she says, I just want everyone to know BLM is actually the New Testament. So I want I'm going to send you guys all a PDF of the Black Lives Bible, instead of King James Bible.
The secret third Bible Testament.
Yeah. I'm going to send you the Black Lives Matter Testament because that's actually the new gospel. And he came in here and he's like, actually, that's not. And then this liberal woman was like, oh, I'm triggered. I'm so triggered. This is bringing my trauma. I'm PTSDing right now.
Started screaming, flailing her arms.
And then she dyed her hair and shaved it all at the same time right there on the Zoom call. Because that's what, and all he did was say, Black lives not gospel. Sorry.
Black lives weren't in the Bible. I can't stop thinking about that graph he showed, because it was like like a bell curve. Yeah. Like you start off being really nice and respectful, and at some point you hit the fucking bell curve, and that's when all the crazy comes out.
Yeah, so you just start going there, being there, and being like, and then next after you start by just being there, you go like, hey, what did you think of like them saying that like being gay is okay? And then people are like, well, I guess I didn't really like that. And he's like, okay. And then you keep doing that. And then eventually you go like, hey, I don't think you should say those things like openly, and other people support you. And then finally you crucify your pastor. That's the end of his curve.
Who hate conservative Christianity but just don't want to call themselves atheists yet. And that's why there are many progressive Christians in leadership of these churches. So if we want to get them out of leadership, all we have to do is disturb their safe space, because then they won't want to be there anymore. Because you have to understand, progressive Christians don't care about religion. They really don't. They're only willing to be part of a religious community if it can be basically just like all their other woke progressive communities.
Liberal Christians aren't really Christians. They don't want to be involved in the church because they like God or anything like that. It's just because they want more woke SJW safe spaces. They want everything to be woke.
It's really funny how hypocritical it is, because this guy was saying like, oh yeah, they come and disturb my church, and he doesn't call what he wants a safe space.
Yeah.
Whatever they want, it's a safe space.
Exactly, yeah. Because they're not real Christians. He is a real Christian. They're not. They're just
He doesn't want a safe space.
Politics.
He just wants a cool space where everyone can hang out and doesn't have to hear this woke liberal bullshit.
Exactly.
It's not safe space though, not safe space.
Yeah, that's his idea. Yeah, I just wanted to do a little reacting, a little diving into his biggest video, and how even in his ones that's supposed to reach significantly more people, he still just can't hide his freakish, monstrous views. And it's funny. So that's the redeemed Zoomer. Doesn't want Christianity to be anything good, like anything actually good, because progressivism is slowly creeping its way into churches and tearing it and eating it out from inside. And pride flags and lesbian pastors are the devil. So thanks for checking it out.